There is a moment in life when you realize that not every battle is meant to be fought with words. Not every offense deserves a response. Not every misunderstanding requires explanation. Some victories are won in stillness. Silence is not surrender. Silence is composure under pressure. Silence is the quiet confidence of someone who knows that God sees what others distort, and that time reveals what noise never can. If you are entering a season where your restraint feels misunderstood, where your calm is mistaken for weakness, stay here. Because what you are practicing right now is not passivity, it is preparation. Number one, silence as strength. Silence is often misunderstood as absence, as hesitation, as fear. But in reality, silence is presence at its highest level. It is awareness in control of itself. When you choose silence in moments where reaction feels justified, you are exercising authority over your inner world. That restraint is not accidental. It is forged through self-awareness, discipline, and a deep understanding that not every moment requires your energy. Silence becomes strength when you realize that power is not proven by volume, but by command over impulse. True strength does not rush to defend itself. It does not panic when misunderstood. It does not feel the need to perform for validation. Silence allows you to observe without being pulled into chaos, to listen without surrendering your position, and to remain grounded while others operate from emotion. In silence, you conserve clarity. You allow time to reveal truth instead of forcing it through confrontation. This is not weakness, it is strategic patience shaped by wisdom. Silence also protects your character. Words spoken in anger often reflect emotions you do not truly believe but temporarily feel. Silence creates a buffer between stimulus and response, and that space is where maturity lives. When you refuse to react impulsively, you prevent situations from escalating and protect yourself from becoming something you are not. Strength is not proven by how loudly you speak, but by how consistently you act in alignment with your values. There is a quiet confidence in silence that unsettles those who expect reaction. When people provoke and receive nothing in return, they are forced to sit with their own intentions. Silence denies chaos its fuel. It shifts the focus inward, where accountability cannot be avoided. In this way, silence does not confront others directly. It exposes them indirectly. It reveals insecurity without accusation and truth without argument. Silence strengthens your connection to discipline. It trains you to respond intentionally rather than emotionally. Over time, this self-mastery compounds into authority that cannot be shaken by criticism or pressure. When you no longer feel compelled to explain yourself, prove yourself, or defend every misunderstanding, you operate from a place of internal stability that few achieve, and that stability becomes the foundation upon which patience, wisdom, and responsibility quietly continue to grow under pressure, unseen, uninterrupted, and firmly rooted in control rather than reaction. Number two, patience is not passive waiting, nor is it a sign that nothing is happening. Patience is active endurance under restraint, a quiet agreement to grow without rushing the process. When life slows you down, it is not denying you progress. It is refining you for what progress will require. The moments where nothing seems to move are often the moments where everything within you is being shaped, aligned, and strengthened beyond what immediate results could ever produce. Most people want outcomes without capacity. They ask for elevation without preparation, influence without discipline, responsibility without maturity. Patience confronts that desire by forcing you to remain present with yourself long enough to develop the character needed to sustain what you are asking for. It stretches your emotional endurance. It sharpens your discernment. It exposes weaknesses that urgency would have allowed you to bypass rather than resolve. Through patience, you learn to carry weight before you are given position. Patience teaches you to trust timing over impulse. It breaks the illusion that force creates fulfillment and replaces it with the understanding that growth unfolds in sequence. When you rush, you carry unfinished habits into finished spaces. When you wait, you arrive whole. Patience slows your reactions, deepens your thinking, and trains you to make decisions rooted in clarity rather than desperation. This is how preparation happens quietly, consistently, and without applause. In seasons of waiting, responsibility is being rehearsed. You are learning how to manage disappointment without becoming bitter, how to hold vision without becoming reckless, and how to remain disciplined without immediate reward. These lessons cannot be rushed because they must be lived repeatedly until they become instinct. Patience ensures that when opportunity arrives, you are not overwhelmed by its demands or corrupted by its pressure. Patience also builds internal authority. When you no longer need constant confirmation that progress is happening, you develop stability that is not dependent on external movement. You learn to remain committed even when motivation fluctuates. This steadiness is rare, and it is the mark of someone being prepared for leadership, stewardship, and long-term purpose. What feels like delay is often training in disguise, shaping endurance, sharpening resolve, and strengthening identity in ways that visible success never could. Number 3, the desire to control outcomes, people, and situations often comes from a fear of uncertainty. Control feels like safety, like power, like assurance that nothing will fall apart. But true strength is not found in controlling what is outside of you. It is found in governing what is within you. Character is what remains steady when control is no longer possible. It is the internal compass that keeps you aligned when circumstances refuse to cooperate, and it is far more valuable than influence that depends on force or manipulation. Character reveals itself in how you respond when things do not go your way, when plans fail, when people disappoint you, when expectations collapse. Character determines whether you become reactive or reflective. Control seeks immediate correction, often through pressure or dominance. Character chooses integrity, even when it costs comfort. It understands that outcomes can be unpredictable, but values must remain consistent. This consistency is what builds trust, credibility, and long-term respect. When you prioritize control, you become emotionally invested in forcing results. When you prioritize character, you become anchored in responsibility for your own behavior. This shift changes everything. You stop measuring success by how well you manage others and start measuring it by how faithfully you manage yourself. You accept that you cannot dictate every situation, but you can decide who you are within it. That decision shapes your identity far more than any external victory ever could. Character also protects you from compromising under pressure. Control often demands shortcuts, justifications, and rationalizations. Character refuses those paths. It chooses the long road, knowing that sustainable progress requires moral clarity and self-discipline. In moments where bending the rules would bring immediate gain, character holds firm, understanding that short-term advantage often produces long-term damage. This restraint builds inner strength that cannot be shaken by criticism or temptation. Over time, character outlasts control. People may resist being controlled, but they are influenced by consistency, humility, and authenticity. Character earns authority rather than demanding compliance. It creates impact without coercion and leadership without force. When you let go of the need to control everything, you gain something far greater: the ability to remain whole, grounded, and principled, regardless of what unfolds around you. Carrying responsibility with steadiness, responding with wisdom, and allowing your actions to speak louder than any attempt to dominate outcomes. Number 4, humility before elevation. Humility is often mistaken for weakness, but in truth it is one of the strongest foundations a person can build. Humility does not deny ability or vision, it places them under discipline. It is the awareness that growth is not self-created and that elevation is not something to be seized but something to be entrusted. Before anything in life is lifted, it must first be stabilized, and humility is what stabilizes the soul when ambition begins to rise. Elevation without humility creates imbalance. It amplifies ego, exposes insecurity, and turns opportunity into pressure. Humility prevents that collapse by teaching you how to stand without needing to be seen. It trains you to listen before speaking, to learn before leading, and to serve before directing. In humility, you recognize that you are always in development no matter how far you have come. This posture keeps your mind open, your spirit teachable, and your actions grounded. Humility also shapes how you handle success before it arrives. It removes entitlement and replaces it with responsibility. Instead of asking what you deserve, humility asks what you are prepared to carry. It understands that influence increases weight, not comfort, and that visibility demands accountability. This mindset shifts your focus from recognition to readiness, from applause to alignment, ensuring that when elevation comes, it does not distort who you are. In seasons where progress feels slow or invisible, humility protects you from frustration. It reminds you that growth is happening beneath the surface, strengthening roots before branches expand. Humility accepts correction without resentment and guidance without defensiveness. It allows you to be shaped without resistance, understanding that refinement is not rejection but preparation. This patience under instruction builds resilience that sudden success would never produce. Humility also preserves clarity when elevation finally arrives. It keeps you aware of your limitations, dependent on wisdom beyond yourself, and connected to purpose rather than pride. Instead of standing above others, humility teaches you to stand firm within yourself. It anchors you to service rather than superiority and keeps your decisions aligned with long-term impact instead of short-term validation. Those who rise with humility carry authority without arrogance, influence without exploitation, and leadership without losing themselves, remaining grounded as responsibility increases and steady as greater expectations begin to surround their path. Number 5. Faith in God's timing. Faith in God's timing requires surrendering the illusion that urgency creates alignment. It asks you to release the constant need for immediate results and replace it with trust in a process you cannot always see. God's timing is rarely convenient, but it is always precise. What feels late to human expectation is often perfectly positioned for spiritual readiness. Faith is not believing that things will happen quickly. It is believing that they will happen rightly. Waiting tests more than patience. It tests trust. When progress is slow and answers are unclear, faith is refined. You learn whether your confidence is rooted in outcomes or in obedience. God's timing exposes where you rely on control instead of surrender, and where you depend on reassurance instead of conviction. In these moments, faith becomes active, choosing consistency over comfort and commitment over clarity. Faith in timing also protects you from premature elevation. Many things can be achieved quickly, but not everything can be sustained. God delays what would damage you if received too early. He develops depth before exposure, strength before responsibility, and wisdom before influence. Waiting is not a punishment, it is protection. Faith allows you to see delay not as denial, but as divine sequencing that ensures you arrive whole rather than hurried. When you trust God's timing, you stop forcing doors that are not meant to open yet. You begin to recognize that resistance can be guidance and that silence can be instruction. Faith teaches you to remain steady when circumstances fluctuate, grounded when emotions rise and disciplined when motivation fades. This steadiness builds spiritual maturity that cannot be rushed or replaced. Faith also reshapes your perspective on progress. You stop measuring advancement by speed and start measuring it by alignment. Small steps become meaningful when they are ordered. Quiet seasons become productive when they are purposeful. Trusting God's timing anchors you in peace, even when uncertainty surrounds you, because you know that what is being prepared will not require compromise to receive. Over time, faith transforms waiting into worship. Every moment of obedience becomes an investment in future responsibility. Every season of restraint strengthens your capacity to handle what is coming. When the moment arrives, it will not feel accidental or forced. It will feel earned through trust, sustained through obedience, and carried forward with confidence rooted not in haste, but in the quiet assurance that God's timing never arrives late, even when it feels delayed to the human mind. Number 6, inner discipline shapes destiny. Inner discipline is the quiet structure that holds a life together long before any outward success becomes visible. It is the ability to govern thoughts, emotions, habits, and reactions when no one is watching. Destiny is often imagined as something dramatic or sudden, but in reality it is built slowly through repeated choices that align behavior with purpose. Inner discipline is what ensures those choices remain consistent, even when motivation fades or circumstances become difficult. Without inner discipline, talent becomes unreliable and vision becomes unstable. Discipline transforms potential into progress by creating order within the self. It trains the mind to focus when distraction is easy, to remain calm when pressure rises, and to persist when immediate rewards are absent. This self-regulation shapes identity over time, forming a person who can be trusted with responsibility because they have learned to manage themselves first. Destiny does not unfold randomly. It responds to the patterns you sustain internally. Inner discipline also determines how you respond to adversity. When emotions are undisciplined, challenges dictate behavior. When discipline is present, challenges refine behavior. You learn to pause instead of react, to evaluate instead of explode, and to choose growth over comfort. These moments accumulate, shaping resilience and emotional intelligence that influence every major decision you make. Destiny is altered not by dramatic breakthroughs, but by the steady strengthening of self-control under pressure. Discipline creates freedom rather than restriction. By setting boundaries around your impulses, you gain clarity and direction. You no longer chase every feeling or react to every provocation. Instead, you move with intention, guided by values rather than volatility. This clarity sharpens judgment and prevents detours that could delay or distort your path. Inner discipline keeps your focus aligned with long-term purpose instead of short-term relief. Over time, inner discipline becomes identity. It defines how you carry yourself, how you speak, how you endure, and how you lead. People may never see the private decisions that shaped your character, but they will experience the stability those decisions produce. Destiny is not shaped by what you declare in moments of inspiration, but by what you practice daily in moments of resistance. The future you step into is constructed by the habits you honor, the impulses you master, and the standards you refuse to abandon, forming a trajectory that moves steadily forward under control rather than chance. Your silence is not weakness, it is wisdom under control. What you are practicing now is preparing you for greater responsibility. Stay disciplined, stay faithful, and trust the process unfolding within you. What is built in quiet strength will stand when everything else falls.